myself one day. So
yeah, nice. Yeah, no, that's great. Good stuff.
So tell us a little bit more about Adam Dyson, the legend that is.
Legend, far from a legend. Where do we start? Kind of towards the start, or where do you? Okay, let's go all the way.
How did you get in? How did you get into photography, and what is it that has you be so passionate about photographing waterfalls?
So, my like career as such started in 2010. I studied film production in Melbourne. Originally grew up in Ballarat, and before that I was a pro BMX rider, so I rode BMX for years and years and years, and then I decided I wanted to try to kind of expand on the BMX kind of side and, you know, maybe study film production. I was filming a lot of like BMX stuff at that present time and shooting for some magazines and things like that. And that was fun, but yeah, it was kind of time to start to learn something a little bit more solid, I guess. So I studied film production, and this is my certificate up here. There it is, up the top there, my $50,000 piece of paper. Yeah, it's about 53 grand, I think it cost. Yeah.
Wow.
In the end. Right. So it was an expensive course, but it's a really tricky balance to try to figure out whether it was worth it or not. It wasn't so worth it for what I learned, but more for what I learned about the actual industry itself, rather than what I learned from the lessons. Do you know what I mean? It's like I feel like, you know, when me and you sit down, I learn so much off you, where if I went and studied this as such, you wouldn't learn it in the same fashion, I guess. And that's the balance.
Like being, I guess, learning on the job and being street smart versus academic learning, which can be a different beast altogether. Not that you don't learn stuff, but sometimes you learn stuff that isn't really relevant. And hence why I've never gone and studied photography, because I'm kind of like, well, if I go and study it, sure, it might be interesting, but to be honest, I think I'll probably look at it, a lot of it, and go, well, how's this relevant? So I agree. You know, and some people prefer to learn in a classroom environment, and other people to learn, like me, from my own mistakes and
doing it,
and doing it probably the hard way. But by the same token, that's the best way I learn those lessons.
Well, I definitely think that getting into photography has really taught me to learn in a very different way, which is kind of good. So after I finished film production, I moved into kind of corporate and commercial work, and it was good. I shot a lot for Holden and Mitsubishi, shot a heap of corporate stuff and a heap of, you know, insurance companies and superannuation companies, and it was fine. Still learned a lot in the video area, and I was assisting photographers as well. So I learned a lot when it comes to like strobes and flashes and framing and everything around that kind of corporate and commercial world. And I was shooting a lot of cars, so I learned a lot about cars. It was more public relations kind of and corporate affairs kind of work, but it was still, you know, it was still quite good. Got a lot of trips all around Australia shooting a lot of cars. Then towards probably the end of 2014, I was kind of getting a bit stale in that kind of job, because it was so rigid. It wasn't super creative. Still was slightly creative, but not super creative. So I thought I wanted kind of a creative outlet for my creative job. That's kind of the way that I looked at it at the time. And I went and bought a 10-stop Lee ND filter, which, if anyone knows Lee filters, they're pretty expensive, especially the holders. The holders are like really, well, they were really quite expensive. I don't know if they're still expensive now. But so what I did is I got an 82 mil. So I got the 100 mil square 10-stop ND filter, and I got an 82 mil for my like filter adapter. And I sticky taped it to the back of the 10-stop ND so that I could use the 10-stop ND. And that was kind of how I got into photography. And I went out and shot, and I shot every night. I shot every morning, and, you know, I just slowly got better and better and better. The end of 2015, I did 6 months around South America, and that kind of really grew my social media following, which was handy. because once you start to see some, improve in your work, people start to like more of your work. And then, it's kind of a motivation to keep on kicking on.
Of course.
Which is handy. And it just kind of continued from there. So I guess it really started because I needed some sort of creative outlet. And that was, and landscape photography was that. I remember saying to my mate Steve, who's still a corporate and commercial photographer and does a lot of video now as well. And he's been shooting for 30, 35 years now. I remember saying to him that, how good would it be to be like Ken Duncan and just go take pretty pictures and travel around Australia
and get paid for it.
Yeah. Which was super. I look back then, 2005, it was probably 2000, start of 15 that I said that. I look at that now and I go, to think that how far I've come in my photography, how much I've done, how much money I've made as such, to be able to survive as a landscape photographer. I'm not doing that full time now, but, I did that for 3-4 years ago until the start of last year.
Yeah, right.
So it was, it was great. It was exciting.
Yep.
And now we're here.
So what is it that keeps you busy during the day then? You've got a day
job? I've got I started a Melbourne part of a anti-slip flooring business. So completely different. And then, now photography's, it's, I guess you say it's on the side, but it's still, it's still a pretty strong part of my day-to-day kind of, activity, I guess you could say.
It brings up an interesting conundrum that always comes up regarding keeping your hobby as a hobby versus making it your career. You've now done both.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy more?
I love and you'll probably, understand this too. Like most people watching this, it's like, I really appreciate the stability of getting, money in my bank account every fortnight. That's nice. Yeah. And it's constant. And then it's, I don't know. I like the really good thing about my job. My boss is in Sydney. The guy that owns the company is in Sydney. I'm the only guy in Melbourne, and I can pretty much do whatever I want. Yep. So there's been days where, if we've had a lot of rainfall overnight and I've just gone and shot waterfalls. Yeah. Because we didn't have much work on. You didn't have much on during the day. So we're like, I just went off and didn't have to tell him. He doesn't mind. As long as the work gets done, he's happy. So that's, that's definitely a bonus. It's kind of, in a way, it's kind of, I'm in very much of a dream position when it comes to that particular work. So that's good. I really like that actually, but I do have a bit of anxiety around when I go out and shoot on days when I'm meant to be working. I've got that stress of still checking the work phone and making sure that no one's called me and checking emails. And it'd be nice to not have that kind of hanging over my head, I guess. Yeah. So it's, I don't know what I like more, in all honesty. It's a weird balance between the two, but I'm in a good position at the moment for just having a constant wage come in, and then the photography is kind of a very decent, nice little top up.
Nice. And what got you, why the obsession with waterfalls? Is that the right word, obsession?
Yeah. Obsession. It wasn't always like that. It was kind of like it's very much a winter thing. The obsession with waterfalls.
Yeah.
I think most winters for the last 2 or 3 years, I've probably only shot waterfalls. And sure, at the end of the day, if I can be bothered shooting sunset somewhere, great. But most of the time it's like, I'm just going to sit at the pub and have a beer because I've done
the hard work.
Done 40,000 steps, and I think I'm kind of done for the day. So that's that it's a winter thing for sure. But then in the summer, I go back to my normal kind of landscape photography. I don't know. Yeah, normal landscape photography, I guess.
Do you enjoy the adventure and the research behind finding all these places just as much as the photography itself?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's like some of these, like some of the waterfalls that I shot this season. For everyone that doesn't know, I tried to shoot 100 waterfalls for winter this year. So from the start of June to the end of August. I only got halfway. I got about 50, 51 in the end, but we had lots of lockdowns. So that's kind of, that's my excuse. That's what I'm using at the moment. But some of these waterfalls, like probably, God, less than 50 people a year would see them, if that. So to rock up at a waterfall and be like, oh, how good's this? It's quite a thrill. It's a nice feeling, especially when you've hiked through the bush for like with no tracks and no kind of idea of where this waterfall is, and you've popped out onto a river and then you've walked upstream. You're filthy dirty and you've used rope to climb down some sides of mountains and stuff. It's fun. I really enjoy that adventure side. Yeah. But the photography is just as rewarding as well, because that's what you're going there for. Well, that's what I'm going there for anyway. So.
And when you go there, are you always just looking for that one killer shot, or are you always challenge? I find that I'm always challenging myself to sort of get as many different shots as possible so that I cover.
Yeah, I guess I do a bit of both. I like to try to find that that primary shot, I guess you could call it. And then I'm trying to really, especially this year, I tried to shoot in both portrait and landscape, and that's something that I'm quite slack with. I'm probably, I'm very much I have been very much an Instagram photographer, or thinking about the content for Instagram. So it's like you shoot in portrait and it seems to fits better in the Instagram kind of algorithm, if you want to call it that. And I really like the way that shooting vertical kind of really draws the image out and creates this really big scene.
It suits a waterfall format, surely, because the majority of waterfalls are a vertical orientation, aren't they?
Yeah. But I very much tried to, I've got some shots I was really happy with, but I really tried to shoot in in landscape as well this year, right. which was good. It was a good, because you do have to shoot slightly differently. Where I'm very used to shooting in portrait, and you just get your camera and you're nice and wide, you're on 15mm lens right over the top, and you use a nice foreground flow in the foreground. It kind of goes right up to the waterfall, nice leading line in. And that's been my primary kind of way of shooting for a lot of waterfalls. But to shoot a little bit differently in landscape's it's been fun. It's been fun to learn a little bit more about that.
And if people wanting to see more of your work, they would jump onto Instagram, of course.
Yeah, you could go Instagram on website. So Adam Dyson, or adamdyson.com.
Dyson.
Everything's my name.
Adam_Dyson for those jumping on Instagram.
Yeah, same as a vacuum cleaner. That's the best way to remember it.
Yes, exactly. And 31.6 thousand followers. That's huge, man.
Yeah, it's pumped up. It's gone well. It's definitely slowed down over the last couple of years, but
of course,
it grew really well. I grew following really nicely. So I'm really gorgeous. Like, I'm actually really stoked with, like, scrolling through my Instagram, looking at those 50 waterfalls that I've shot for the year. It's really exciting. It makes me quite happy, actually.
And what I love about what you've done with these waterfalls is that sometimes the waterfall isn't necessarily taking up the majority of the picture.
Yeah.
Like you've got that one there where it's a lot about the foreground interest, and then the waterfall is that sort of secondary element in the background. So it's that one that you showed on the weekend was just a killer, like
that's a cool image. Yeah.
So much atmosphere in that picture. And I love, for those who haven't seen Adam's work, a lot of the stuff I gather that you got this year was very much in mist and fog and what have you.
Yeah.
At those places, which is again something that is a little different. And I think that flows well into the next conversation regarding, if you were to publish a book, how is it going to be something that is different to perhaps what's already out there, or is compelling enough that when somebody picks up this book, they go, "All right, this is gorgeous. Wow, this is amazing." Turn it over, look at the price, and then decide that that's something they're going to purchase.
Yeah. No, it was. It's been a really, as I've said it a heap of times, and I'll keep saying it, but it's been a fun year.
What do you shoot with? Just tell people a little bit about that. What camera gear and what?
I primarily shoot with a Fujifilm, an X-T4. I just got the new wide angle. They released a second version of their wide angle, so the 10-24, which is a kind of a 15-36 in full frame equivalent. Right. It's only an f4, which kind of sucks, but it's it's okay.
Why would you prefer like a 2.8?
I think a 2.8 would be better if it was a better lens. I've shot with there's an 8-16 mil, but it's got a big bulbous front lens.
Yes, makes it hard.
And I want to put a polarizer on. I need a polarizer. Yeah. Every time I shoot, the only filter I shoot with now is a polarizer. And
it's on all the time?
On all the time.
Right.
The only time it's not on is for Astro, really.
Yep.
It's on 99% of the time. I have the polarizer on. I feel like it can never do anything bad when it comes to the foliage and the water.
Yeah. And just explain that for those who perhaps haven't had a lot of experience photographing waterfalls with polarizers. Because it just super saturates the colors in the foliage in particular.
Yeah, so I guess the main thing to think about is that when light's coming down from the sky, it's reflecting off the foliage. And most of the time, the greens become quite reflective, especially when it's a little bit wet, because 90% of the time when you're going to a waterfall, when you're actually trying to shoot a waterfall, it's a little bit wet. So the light's coming down, there's a slim layer of water or film on the top of the foliage. The light's coming down, bouncing off that, coming into the lens. What the polarizer does is, as you turn it, they're mostly circular. You turn it and it kind of polarizes, same as your glasses when you're looking out the river. So a lot of things that are dark become polarized. The foliage becomes really polarized. You can kind of see through the water a little bit more. But it's if it's used right. If it's used wrong, it's pointless. But if it's used right, it's the best thing that you could use on a landscape photo. Really,
what's right versus wrong then?
If you've got it in the wrong position, because what's going to happen? It just won't do anything.
No.
It just pretty much acts like a piece of glass that's that's sitting on the front of your lens. Really, then another good thing with polarizers, it takes about 1.5 to 2 stops off your exposure too. So it's kind of like a 1 to 2 stop ND filter as well.
But a lot of these places that you would go to probably be pretty dark and miserable, and you're probably in there first thing in the morning or, last light. So you'd be struggling with a lot of light anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm trying to aim for probably somewhere around, I'm starting to shoot faster and faster when it comes to the water, because I like the look of that dynamic kind of water.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to shoot probably, I would rarely shoot slower than a second anymore.
Right.
Where a lot of landscape photographers with waterfalls might shoot right up to 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, probably, 1/10 would be probably my favorite. 1/10 or an 1/8 of a second would be kind of my go-to shutter speed for waterfalls.
And ISO, are you trying to keep that as low as possible?
So this is a funny thing, like when, as you've probably taught hundreds and hundreds of people, like, ideally you want your ISO as low as possible. I prioritize that shutter speed with waterfall photography over my aperture. Over my ISO.
So you're actually changing your ISO in order to get the desired shutter speed.
So, yeah, sometimes if I have to. Yeah,
You'd ramp the ISO up
anyway.
You'd ramp the ISO up just to get that shutter speed a fraction higher, so you get the movement in the water that you want.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. And that was that was tricky for me to kind of get in my head that I can do that and I'm allowed to do that, because it was so burnt into you that, like, you don't want to go above 100. You want it as clean as possible. But it's funny, I feel, any camera that's built in the last year, you could probably shoot at 1600. You could shoot at 3200 ISO in the right light and it'd be fine.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I would rarely shoot at 3200 for a waterfall, but I'm happy to shoot. I wouldn't be all that concerned with going to like 400 to 800 if I had to.
Yep.
Yeah, I try to keep it as low as possible, but if I have to, I will.
I think what's happening these days with cameras is that they are getting so much better in terms of the technology, so that the higher ISOs don't look so horrible.
Yeah.
But coupled along with that is that you've got this great anti-noise denoising software.
Yeah.
That means that hopefully one day ISO largely becomes irrelevant.
Yeah. Yep.
At the end of the day, it's not going to matter what ISO shooting at. The photo will come out looking pretty much the same anyway.
I think with the right light, you can get away with so much anyway. Right. Like if you were going to shoot, I don't know, let's say your aerial stuff, if you were hanging out of a plane, you could shoot at 3200 ISO in the middle of the day, and you would never know that it was shot at 3200 ISO.
Right.
Like you get away with a lot more, don't you? But you still want to practice, you still want your best practice and shoot as low as possible. But I feel, you're probably right in that eventually it's not going to be a problem.
Be nice.
Yeah, be good. Yep.
So this whole conversation tonight came about because whilst you were teaching at the Bright Festival of Photography on the weekend, you were giving a great rundown on that fantastic sort of project you gave yourself this year in order to try and shoot 100 waterfalls in a winter. And I asked you the question around what's the end result? What do you think you might like to do with all these photos? And the idea of perhaps publishing a book came up.
Yeah.
And that's where that piqued my interest, because at the end of the day, I think there would rarely be a time where I would take a photograph without having some sort of ulterior motive in mind, and that ulterior motive is more often than not to either have it as a print in the gallery to sell, and or an image that I could then publish in a book.
Yeah, of course.
And I love the idea of publishing books. I think something about, I've always loved sitting and reading and looking at a book. But also too, I think, as a secondary thing to that, it's a bit of a legacy that you can, outlives you. So, if that's something that's important to you, obviously that's a great journey and a path to go down. But it is a specific sort of thing that you, that if you have that in mind at the beginning of a project such as this or halfway through, then it can sometimes give it purpose, and inspires you to keep going.
Keep pushing on,
and or it means that you're shooting with that in mind. Mary and I have been shooting and running portrait studios for many years, where you would shoot specific to a brief, knowing that that's going to be a photograph that's going to go on a wall and it has to fit a particular space. So maybe it's going off above a fireplace and they want a panoramic format, so therefore you have to shoot with plenty of space either side to allow it to be cropped into a pano. If you're shooting, I could see, if you decide to go down the path of publishing these in a book, whereby if you want to differentiate yourself from perhaps other books that are out there, if you're looking at the majority of photos and they are in a portraits, vertical format, why wouldn't you publish a book that's in that same format?
Yeah, gotcha. Yep. So
I think one of the things that when I first, think about my own book projects is, what's the theme? What is it that is, what's the angle? Like, you're writing an article for a magazine, like what's the angle here? What is it that's going to have people be interested in it in the first place? So for example, we did a book on the Mornings Peninsula initially, and then we did a book on the summer down here at the Mornings Peninsula, which was a completely different book because we sold out of the first edition of our book, which was just, beautiful, pretty landscapes of the Mornings Peninsula. And we thought to ourselves, well, we could just reprint that, because we really didn't print a lot of copies. We printed about 600.
Yeah.
But then Mary encouraged me to perhaps go out there and publish something completely different from what we'd done already, because it was new and exciting, but also meant that it could potentially be sold to those people who had already bought our first edition.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Or our first book, I should say, because we didn't reprint it again. Yeah. So it just meant that we were sort of getting two bites of the cherry. And so the second book that we did was a completely different book to the first one we did. Yeah. And it ended up being a vertical book rather than a horizontal book. And I know, you tell me, what other books on, if you were to go ahead and publish this book, what other books have been done that would perhaps be seen as being forerunners to your book?
Oh,
but there's that guy who did the
Yeah, like there's a couple behind me. So there's the Anthony Carr Waterfalls of the Otways or something, whatever he calls it. And that
seems like it's a few years old now, though. Yeah.
No, it was published this year.
Oh, right. Jesus, no, that's brand new.
It looks old. Yeah, it's very much dated already, but it's a beautiful source of information.
Right.
That book focuses very much on how a particular waterfall's got their names.
Right.
There's 236 or something waterfalls in there, and it's focused more around that. So it's a lot to do with he was finding articles from the 1800s and, who found this waterfall, who named it, what it got named after, pictures and all that kind of stuff, like vintage photos, which is, really
more a historical book than anything.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So there's GPS coordinates to get to the actual, where the pinpoint of the location is, but it's also just there's no directions of how to get there or stories behind how he got there. So I think if I was going to do it, or when I do it,
yep,
because it's something that I'm, that was thought about when I started shooting the waterfalls. So it's always been the goal. Right. And that's probably also too why I started to shoot a bit more in landscape as well, so that I could have those, dual page kind of images.
Yes.
And that's probably something to think about too, is that I probably need to, put the waterfall off to one side so then it doesn't get cut off by the middle. That's middle band.
Exactly something that you need to consider when you come to the point of laying the book out. And I use Adobe InDesign. Pretty easy software to use. You can make your own templates, or you could have somebody make them up for you. Sure. And that's the thing about book design, is that you tend to sort of not want 20 different templates to choose from, because consistency in a book is what gives it its structure and gives it its interest. If you're jumping around here, there, and everywhere, it just becomes a bit too confusing for people. They like simplicity. Although they consciously don't say, oh, this is the same page layout as what I've seen 10 times already.
Yeah.
They absolutely want that in a book.
Yeah.
So if it jumps around, you could do quite easily just to have, 4 different templates, to be honest. Not that I'm saying you have to stick to 4, but, if it was a vertical book, in my mind, you might have a double page spread for each a minimum double page spread for each waterfall. Yep. And on one side, you might have, being the right-hand side, you might have a full bleed photo.
Yep.
Because most of us look to the right and we turn from the right. So it makes sense to have the hero image on the right. And then on the left, you have the title and you have a description.
Yeah.
And yet, if you really had a number of different photos from that same waterfall, you could always take that over to a second double page spread, which might have a full bleed double page spread in a horizontal format rather than the vertical that you saw before. Gotcha. But it's wildly different to the previous shot as well. So you're not going, oh, that's just the same waterfall, just from, vertical rather than horizontal. It could be like something different again. So it's almost unrecognizable that it's the same waterfall unless you flip back and go, oh, yeah, no, I can see the similarity, but it's different,
Yeah, gotcha.
But getting back to the template thing, it doesn't need to be too difficult. You put it into Adobe InDesign. It's like you put Adobe InDesign's used for book publishing and magazine layouts, and you simply just sort of placehold the photograph into a box. Everything has to go in a box. Text goes in a box. Photographs go in a box.
Yeah.
And then, as you've said, you need to then think, okay, right, so this is a double page spread, and there's the middle of the book. That's where the gutter is. They call it the gutter.
Yep.
You can't really see maybe a centimetre either side of the gutter, so the picture gets lost in the gutter.
Yeah.
And as you've rightly said, you don't want to hide anything out of the gutter. And sometimes that comes down to, are you going, actually, I can't use that photo at all because it's just, it's pointless. I'm cutting that.
Not going to work.
That waterfall in half, so it's not going to do it justice. I'm going to hate that every time I look at that photo.
Yeah.
I'm going to hate that I put that in because it really just doesn't do the waterfall justice. So
yes,
there's many things to consider like that can easily not trip you up, but just can easily get missed.
Yep. And then you've got this thing that you've got thousands of copies sitting.
It's not going to make or break the photo or the book, I should say, and the commercial success of it. but it's going to be something that you see every time you look at it. You're just going to go, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah. I think what I like the most about books is that every year for the last 5 years, I've published a calendar. And that's quite rewarding, seeing everything kind of, laid out, but it's very much a print and sell and it's gone. You can't, you obviously can't run that over years and years, the same kind of thing. So I think what I like the most is that, I can sell books in July and they're still going to be the same book as they were 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And sure, you want to update it over years and years, and you might add things on and make second versions and whatever else. But it's still becomes something that's kind of, like you said before, it kind of everlasting as such.
Yes. Yeah.
I like that kind of idea.
And tell me about that theme you have in mind, because I get the impression, based on what you said about Anthony's book, that you see your book more as telling perhaps the stories about your journey to get to each of the locations. Is that right?
I think I would push probably towards some, like a story-based book. Even if it's a short story or a long story, depending on the waterfall.
Yeah.
But
do you write well?
I'm okay, but not really. I would probably need to write something, then get someone to write it.
Right. Okay. A bit of ghostwriting involved. Well, that's not difficult.
Yeah.
You can get people on Fiverr
that'd be something.
Or perhaps, a professional writer closer to home, but depends on your budget. But at the end of the day, I think you tell a story well, so I can't imagine why you wouldn't be able to.
I feel like I could. It would just need some proofreading and some kind of, some clarification, I guess, more than anything.
Good sense, structure, things like that. I'll tell you what, it's interesting. I'm just had a thought in mind about Mary, who has a long time wanted to write a book about selling and marketing, etc., in photography. Yet she just can't sit down to write. I love sitting down to write, and I actually write better than how I speak. But then she would be much better, and this might be better for you, to actually do it into a dictaphone. Speak about it, tell the story. Oh, right, you have that waterfall picture in front of you and go, oh, this was epic getting to this spot, because what we had to do was this. And then that gets transcribed. And from there, a professional writer puts some structure into it.
Gotcha.
Far less, if you're saying to me, God, I can't imagine having to sit down. It would take me an hour to write a story.
Yeah. If I could write the story, I would just like it to be, I'd like it to be, I guess, in my style, but more exciting.
Right.
Just written a bit nicer.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, but make sure it shows off your personality still, though. It doesn't have to be beautifully written or anything else. I think
probably helps a lot of the time too, anyway, because then it's very much about
it's very much relatable then too. You know what I mean? If it's too polished, people will just go, yeah, okay, I didn't really get the feel for what that guy's about or his personality, or I don't know that's the right way to go about it, to be honest. I think part of your appeal is your sort of, how should I put it? I don't know, you're just relatable, you're going, you're conversational, I think if you're looking to be too polished, it just won't go off as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're probably right. I don't know.
If that was to help, where you think to yourself, I don't like the idea of sitting down and having to write heaps.
Oh no, I do. I actually I half like it. Yeah.
Right.
I think once I started getting into it, and once I snapped open my InDesign every day and just plugged out a story about that waterfall.
Yeah.
And it got to a year down the track, and I'd shot 200, and I'm halfway through writing it. It'd be kind of an exciting goal to get to the end of it. And I think like everything, it'd probably get a bit repetitive, a bit laborious at some stage. But I feel like it would be it'd be quite rewarding, as you could probably understand.
I think it absolutely is, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there. What I would start doing if I was you is coming up with, I think, first and foremost, you sort of say to yourself, right, what's the theme of the book? We've got that already established. It's waterfalls, obviously. Sure. And then you're sort of like, right, okay, is it going to be a portrait or a landscape orientation? And I would encourage you to go for that vertical portrait orientation, because it's going to suit most of your photos. Then we go and we get a quote from the printers. And the printers I have used for the last 10, 12 years is called Everbest in China.
Okay.
And the reason we go to China, and majority of the book publishing is in China, is because it's a third of the price of what it is here in Australia.
Yeah, of course.
Because we'd love to use, and say it's published here in Australia, but printed here in Australia. But to be honest, no one really cares.
And you'd end up having to sell a book for $200.
That's it. I've occasionally had people ask, oh, so is this printed in Australia? And it's like, well, no, we'd actually like it to be, but I'm sure you wouldn't want to have to pay $200 for that book. Oh, no, I wouldn't pay $200.
Yeah.
Hence why we don't get it printed here in Australia.
Fair enough,
I've never seen a book come off the press there. I'd love to one day. Everything's done via email. Yeah. My good friend Ian Wallace down in Tassie does all the pre-press for my books. So what happens is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the print process.
Not really.
You lay it out in InDesign, and then you package that up. The software packages it up for you and you send it to Ian. And what he then is, he opens up that package and then he says, right, okay, I've got to check that all the ink values are correct. So when you convert the photo from RGB, being what we print with, to a CMYK, which is what they print with, there's changes. And if the blacks are too black, there's too much ink on the page as it runs through the press, and then all of a sudden it smudges the pages after that.
Okay, gotcha.
And so you're looking at saturation levels in some of the photos as well, looking at the bleeds and making sure that all the pictures are lined up properly on the pages, things like that. There's a thing called a pre-press that you do. It's a pre-flight software, it's called, actually, that runs through the whole book and picks up all the errors. Okay. Of which generally with me, because I've rushed through it or can't be bothered, because it's probably my least favorite part of it, is there's generally lots. And Ian sends me a report and says, what do you want to do with all these? And I say, don't worry about all that. Worry about that. How much is that going to cost me? And, it's anywhere from, $500 to $1,000, generally speaking, to get pre-pressed done. And then that gets sent to the printers in China, which they will then, they can send you a whole copy of the book.
Yeah, like a proof,
a proof, so that you can look at every single photo and then decide if you're happy with that.
Yeah.
They give you 2 copies of the book. If you pay for it, it costs $1,000, $1,500.
Yeah.
You'll get a beautiful gloss paper. You get what is pretty much close to what you'll get in the printed book. So you check the color. And then the second one is just a crappy inkjet printout, but it's all stapled together. And that's the layout of the book to check that each page is, one after the other.
Okay.
You've actually got the order right.
Yep.
In the book, even though you've looked at it a million times on the computer screen, you might have stuffed something up, and then all of a sudden you're looking at the book and you go, hold on, that's not right. Why does that page come after that page? That we've got that mixed up. So you get to do all those checks. Cool. And then you literally, you can make changes on the press, they call it, which is not desirable because it costs you money. You try and get it all right before you send it off. Cool. But if you need to make any changes, you can, and then you can then send it to print. And then it takes probably about, I like to allow about 8 or 12 weeks for it to get to you after that point.
Yep.
Whereby they print it, they bind it, they package it up into boxes, they put it on a pallet, and then they put it on a ship. Now, the only thing that's happened more recently with COVID is that shipping costs have cost about 4 times as much as what they used to.
Yep.
Which obviously adds to the cost, but that's all included in the quote that you'll get from Everbest.
Yeah.
So what you do is you probably look at some of your own books that you've got in your collection, or go to a bookshop and you just start exploring and just going, right, what do I like the look of? Oh, wow.
I like it look,
Yeah, I love the size of that one. I love how many pages it's got in it. I love the hardcover. I love what's that material they've done, that sort of stuff. You're doing your own research, right? And we did that pretty well with, I think, the latest book. We actually modeled it very closely to a book done by Christian Fletcher over in WA, who used the same printers for the first time as we've for many years. And so we just went to Everbest and said, hey, we really like what you did with Christian's book. Can you give us a quote for the same specs?
Yeah.
That's what they did.
Cool.
And so once you've got the quote, you just go, yeah, that sounds good. Okay. And look, to be honest, if you were to do something similar to my Mornington Peninsula Summer Edition book, have you seen that book?
I've seen picture. I haven't seen it in the flesh. No.
Yeah, I'll just quickly grab a copy of it.
So yeah. Sing a song for everyone while Tom's not here. What do you reckon?
Sorry, mate. Here's the book.
Good. Yep.
And so this is roughly sort of A4-ish. I love the idea of a hardcover book. I just think it adds lots of value. We did traditionally these days, what's actually done now is what's called a printed hardcover. So dust jackets are sort of like a thing of the past. They're a bit old-fashioned, a bit like a traditional matte on a frame print. It's just not kind of done these days. This is a beautiful matte finish, and we actually had this embossed. I love the idea of having that embossed, so we paid extra for that. This is an unusual copy of this book because when I opened it up,
it's upside down.
They printed this upside down, and I'm like, shit, the whole book's upside down. And in fact, it is. The whole book is upside down, except the cover's been put on the wrong way. So we had these end papers printed on as well. Traditionally, when you open a book, that's just completely white.
Yeah.
You pay extra for that. Yeah. And then you can print on this opposite side of the end paper as well.
Yeah.
And then, you dive straight into it, contents, introduction, and then we sectioned this up into different sections, okay? And we had this vector map drawn by Ian, the pre-press guy, and we just marked on the map, where each of these sections were on the Mornington Peninsula. Okay?
Yeah, great. Yep. Okay.
When I initially spoke to him about this book, I just had laid it out, basically just throwing pictures on the pages and in a random order. And I said, should there be a theme? And he goes, yeah, definitely, mate. You want a theme? And I'm like, right, bugger. Okay. Rearrange the whole book. So you may want to think about that, whether you theme your book or not. For example, it's just Victoria, isn't it?
It will I reckon I will do. It just depends. It'll be actually, now that I think it's probably better off to just be Victoria, isn't it?
Well, no, it's really up to you. At the end of the day, I like what you said. It depends because it shows that your project's still being quite fluid and in motion. It's like you're not stuck on anything in particular at the moment. You might say, well, I shot some great stuff down in Tassie, or I've done some really beautiful stuff up in the Snowy Mountains, and I'd like to include that. So you include that. But for example, I one day want to publish a book on the snow landscapes of Australia. It's laid out. It's all ready to go. I've just got to find the money to do it. But again, we section that up into state because I've been to Tassie, Victoria, and New South Wales to do that work.
Mm-hmm.
So we separated it into those sections. I could see that if you were doing just a book on waterfalls of Victoria, that you would have an Otway section, you would have a Yarra Ranges, Dandenongs, Victorian High Country, whatever it is.
In
terms of the sectioning it that way, just having some sort of structure rather than just any randomness. I think.
Yeah, I think it would definitely have some sort of structure. I'm just trying to figure out whether it would be. I just don't know if I would get enough from other states to really justify it having its own section. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's probably better. It's probably better off. Because it's not like I can just duck down to the Blue Mountains for the weekend.
Oh, that's a ripper spot to shoot waterfall.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I can get there and I can shoot a bit, but it's like, I want the best possible image from every location, obviously. Yeah. So it's like, and the only way you get a really good waterfall image is after rainfall.
Yeah.
So it makes it really tricky to shoot anytime other than winter, really.
Yeah.
Winter until probably maybe the end of October is kind of your cutoff.
I was going to say here in Melbourne, the springtime often has weather a lot like winter. As in it's just a warmer version of winter.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, yep.
Windy and wet.
Well, they down the Otways like 3 weekends ago, they had like a 1 in 20 year event and they had 120 mil overnight.
Yeah,
crazy. They were being, all those waterfalls were doing pumping.
Do you tend to have to wait like 24 hours or so? Because I find that if I go to those waterfalls straight after, they're just flush brown with horrible water.
Yeah, and sometimes there's like, it can get to a point where there's too much water.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a bit of a balance, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably would end up just being Victoria, I think.
And the other thing is too, one of the things that Mary encouraged me to do with my snow book, all those, probably 5 years ago when I decided to finally think about publishing it, was that, I said, I haven't got every sort of spot that I want to get to yet. There's still lots of places down in Tassie that I'd love to do. And just like, you know what, you'll never think that you've got everything. So just go ahead and publish this one. And if you want to do a second, edition, do that. And that convinced me to actually go ahead and do it, because I was it's right. And the snow season, as like your waterfall season, can be really short. And so, this could drag on for years for me, for my snow book, whereas I've got 160 pages worth of photos. Why don't I just go ahead, publish that? And then you publish, the Snow Landscapes of Australia Part 2 or second edition or whatever. And you update it with more photos, or you actually have a whole new book with a whole set of new photos as well. So that's obviously a possibility for you. Notice with the templates in this book, by the way, which there's very few templates. This is a sort of 3/4 template that we used.
Yep, cool.
Okay. Nice. This is, your full bleed.
Yeah.
Not even, no, that's more a 3/4 as well. So
3/4 full bleed,
full bleed.
Yep.
And then there was another one which was just like a boundary format, like that.
Oh yeah, cool.
That's it. 3 templates basically through the whole book. So through the whole book, everything double page spreads because it was all horizontal, format.
Did you have did you do little stories on it, or how did you?
Just a little caption underneath each one there that you can sort of see there. Yep. Just title. And the photo is labeled the same on my website, that if people were to go, all right, I want to purchase this one, it's called Catching Waves, they just type that into the search box on my website and they can purchase that. I did stories at the start of each section like that. Yeah. And I actually struggled a little bit to write some about that. So I actually emailed a few of my friends on Facebook. Messaged them on Facebook and said, hey, I've written this so much about, this area, but can you add some bit more to me? And they actually wrote it for me.
Yeah, cool.
And then I put it back out to them again and said, can you proofread this for me?
Yeah.
And I got about a dozen people to proofread it as well.
Yeah, nice.
And that was because I can go, no, I've proofread it. It looks amazing. And then you're like, you get it printed and you go, oh fuck, what's that spelling mistake doing there? And that doesn't
put words in the wrong order and everything.
All sorts of stuff. Yeah. So that certainly helps. I like the idea of you deciding on the templates, starting to lay that out, because that's a really exciting process just to start with.
Yeah. So you laid everything out and then
lay everything out in all my books. Every single one of my 14 books that I've published, I've done the layout for. I've got some designers to do templates for me.
Yeah.
For example, we did these big dog books called Wolf Books as charity fundraisers for my portrait studio years ago.
Yeah.
And we would have a feature picture of the dog, and we would have their names, and then we'd have the owner write a brilliant story about them. And we got, rather than just having the same font for every single page in the book, we actually would pay a designer, I think it was at least $30, $50 per story.
Yeah.
Together a really cool font that would match the story or the name of the dog. So we had a dog called Honey, and the designer made the O of the honey a honey pot with bees coming out of it. Cool. That was really clever. So that's where I've paid, because if you can pay a designer to do those fun things, it takes it from being sort of clearly, the photographer's laid this book out versus actually this looks like it's been really professionally done.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So, I don't like the idea of the book looking amateurish, and sometimes even just the font you can choose.
Yeah, I agree.
As a caption can look like, oh my God, Times Roman. Yeah, we've seen that many times versus, oh no, that looks like a pretty funky modern font. You know what I mean?
Yep.
this is nothing more than just two fonts. That Golden Plains font, font that we use fairly often for our all our stuff, and then that's just a pretty simple sort of italics font because I'm telling a story. You know, again, the designer just to go here. I've laid out a few pages of my book. What font would you recommend I use for the title of the waterfall versus what font would you recommend I use for the story? And they can do the layout for you, and it'll look $1,000,000. But you just use the same across all the pages in the book, even if you want it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And it's the photos that break up the book and give it that sort of fluidity. But I like the idea of you laying out a few templates. I can show you how to do that in InDesign. Ian can even do that for you because he's a graphic designer as well, my pre-press guy. And then you start, laying out the pages, and getting some sort of structure, and that's really exciting. And then you start writing the stories and dropping them in. And you've got an off season in sense that you've got your waterfalls that you shoot during the winter, but then during the summer, that might be the opportunity to then write all those stories.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. I think it was, realistically, it's probably going to take probably another couple of years, because I've got 50, maybe do, if I can aim for that 100 next year, but 100 different ones that I've shot already, which is, starts to get tough.
Yep.
And then just finish it off in 23. And have something for 2024 maybe.
Yep. And in the meantime, that gives you the opportunity to start perhaps researching something that we haven't talked about in this conversation, which is, right, who's going to buy it?
Yeah.
And then how are they going to buy it?
Yeah.
So that's critical because, that's what I think of first and foremost. And I'm very fortunate in a sense that I have my gallery, which is my primary sort of channel in which to get my book to market.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that I want to share with you now. What we've done in the past is that we've had the book exclusively available in the gallery, only sold through the gallery, which means that 100% of the profits come to me.
Yep.
Okay. I've taken the time and the effort to put the whole book together, photograph it, lay it out, project manage it from start to finish. And therefore I feel I'm rewarding myself for the hard work I've done.
Yep.
But it's at least that was a over $20,000 investment for that. We printed 2,000 copies, by the way.
Yeah.
So the more copies you print, the cheaper per cost it comes. Generally what Everbest do is they'll quote for 1,000, although they've now started quoting for 500. And in the past, we used to actually get 500, but pay for 1,000, as in a sense that it was the same cost, but we'd say, well, we don't want to have to store 1,000.
Yeah.
Even though we're paying the same price as 1,000, we don't want to have to store 1,000. So we're happy to only get 500. Whereas these days, actually paying for 500 is a cheaper option still.
Okay. Cool.
So 500, 1,000, 2,000, etc. Generally, the first 1,000 is a sort of set price, and then the next 1,000 after that is half the price of the first 1,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So scales of economics, as you know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And now we've sort of stalled with that book. We printed 2,000 because we sold out of the 500-600 we did of the first copy of the book we did.
Yeah.
And we thought, we definitely need to print more, which is true. But we sort of got to the point where we sort of struggled with getting more than 1,000 out the door.
Yeah.
So what we've now
done,
you've
got 1,000 sitting there just slowly going out.
We're paying for storage. So we've got 100. We pay for a storage unit just down the road here, which costs me $160 a month. So clearly, that's $16, $17, $2,000 a year. Let's call it.
Yeah.
And so, right, okay, I've got to obviously sell X a number of books to pay for that, which is not too many. This retails at $75. Yeah. But by the same token, it's an expense. So
of course, yeah.
And I can't print another. In my mind, I don't want to print another book until I finish selling that one.
Yeah.
And heaps of people, because we called this one the summer edition, which was all about people enjoying the Mornington Peninsula in summer. The number of people that have said to me, "Oh, right, so is there going to be a winter edition? Because you called this one the summer edition?" And I'm like, I'd love to shoot and print a winter edition, but would you buy it? Because people love the idea of summer down here on the peninsula, but winter can be pretty gnarly.
It's pretty, it's a bit rough, isn't it?
Are they happy to look at all these storm photos and stuff like that? And they're like, yeah, no, okay. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'd absolutely love to do that, but I can't justify putting another $20,000 to a project if I still haven't finished selling this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's kind of it's that strange point where you're at where it's like, it would have been great to just buy 500 and then another 500 and then another 500, but then it's going to cost you 5 times the amount, won't it?
Well, it is. And the other thing too is, Adam, is of course you're paying for the shipping costs every time you do that.
Yeah.
And there's import duties, there's GSTs, et cetera, et cetera. I think the cost of that to just get it off the dock, the landing fees, get it off the dock, have it delivered to my storage space was another, $3-4 grand.
Yeah. Okay.
On top of that, your GST you can get back. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, it's that sort of hidden cost that you don't sort of factor in. You see the cost of the printer and you see the cost of Ian to do the pre-press and you think, all right, that's all I'm up for. And then all of a sudden that bill comes from the freight forwarder and you're like, oh, bastards, like, right, there's another X number of books I've got to sell to cover that cost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of those things where it'd be great if you could just go pick it up.
Yeah, they kind of don't let anyone just wander onto the docks and
I couldn't imagine them doing that.
Unfortunately, they've got you
back your van up and just go.
Yeah. No, it's mine. Look, I'll show you. My name's Tom Putt. You see, it's on the book. Yeah. They really screw you over there.
Yeah. So that was like a container of books, was it? How many?
It's called pallets. There's a name for it, and somebody else watching this will know far better than me. It slipped my mind because there's an acronym for it, which basically means part of a container as opposed to a full container. Okay. So they buy a certain amount of space in a container.
Yeah.
So it was about 5 pallets worth of books.
5 pallets. Okay.
And then I instructed the freight forwarders to arrive, because we've had the problems before where they arrive at your storage space and they say, "Where's your forklift?" And we go, "What do you mean forklift? Like we're not a storage facility."
Yeah.
I'm just hiring this thing. So like we got the guy to come with a flat tray on the back.
Yeah.
And one of those pressurized
jack trolley,
jack trolleys. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So that took less than 20 minutes to unload.
Yeah.
He literally backed it right up to my storage unit. It was on a ground floor. We rolled up the roller door. He jacked off every pallet. He placed it really nicely in the storage unit and was done.
Yeah, nice.
Done. You rip it open. You pile each book into your van and off you go.
Yeah,
I've bloody picked up another number of those books. I tell you what, in boxes. Don't need to go to the gym anymore.
Could imagine.
But then, what we've now started to do, given the sales have slowed up, is that we've actually started to push it out to homewares stores and other bookshops on the Mornington Peninsula.
Cool.
And we're selling it to them for $50, and then they're selling it for $75, which is around what they make about a 40% margin on books.
Okay.
So I think the landing cost all up for that book was around $15.
Yeah.
So even though we're selling it to them for $50, we're still making $35.
Yeah, which is good.
Which is not the $60 that we make selling it direct.
Yeah.
If we can't sell anymore, what's the point?
There's not. Yeah, exactly. No.
A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. So $35 is better to us than nothing at all.
Yeah.
So whilst I said I was never going to do it that way, I just feel, these days we're kind of like, well, clearly everyone who knows about us pretty much come to the gallery, has bought their copy.
Yeah.
And we actually need to use other people to spread.
That's what it comes down to too. I guess the way that I look at it for, my calendars every year was that I need to sell, X amount of calendars to get in a profit. And then from there, everything's fun.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I write down to, Adam, when I come to do this. I go, right, okay, what's the economics here? And then you'll do the same. You'll go, right, we'll get a quote for you this week on this, right?
Yeah, nice.
You decide on the size. If you said to me, Tom, just get me a quote on that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably the best option because it's quite, it's quite nice and even.
Quite nice. It's probably brilliant. What are you talking about?
What was that, sorry?
It's bloody brilliant, mate. What are you talking about? No, I'm going to grab your address too, mate, and send you a copy, by the way. Yeah, you see, you know why I thought this was old? Like the font and the layout looks to be like 80s. Yeah, there's a dust jacket that nobody. You know what happens to a dust jacket? You throw it out.
Yeah, I've only got it on there because I've only looked in it 20 times. So,
right.
But yeah, it is
annoying. You see,
it is a bit of an old. It's definitely an old looking book.
You see, he's printed on the cover there. So why would you need a dust jacket as well? It's just doubling up. you know, in the past, the dust jacket was sort of almost hiding the boring cotton, you know, or everything else, you know, boring black.
This is kind of what it looks like on the inside, whether you've seen it before or not.
That font he's used, is like something out of the 80s.
Be just times. Well, it's got a stroke around it, which is quite nice.
Okay,
but it's a great book for if that's what you want. But yeah, I would prefer something much more modern, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I'm reasonably good at, you know, designing things and kind of what looks good and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I would still get people to look over it and all that kind of stuff, obviously. But yeah, I'd like something that doesn't look like it's 10 years old.
Yes.
When it's been printed this year, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And we're not being critical. I'm sure the book is fabulous and it's got great content.
Yeah, of course.
It wouldn't be, as we're illustrating, it wouldn't be the style that you would go for.
No. And I'd be pushing, you know, a lot towards, I feel like he's made this as it's kind of nearly a historical document.
Yes.
More than something that's going to sit on
a coffee table
and people are going to look at all the time.
It's almost like a reference book as opposed to a, you know.
Yeah, very much so. So I'd like the balance between it being, and then it's like, I want to try to figure out whether I'm going to do it as a, is there going to be directions and is there going to be stuff like that in the book so that people could, you know, go visit it. But then I like to try to avoid encouraging people to do dangerous things. So, but you know,
look, you can't protect people from that. At the end of the day, if you like the idea, I could see it a possibility whereby you had the book where you have your great story, because I'm sure you've got so many good stories to tell about the adventures of reaching these and interesting stories. People love a story behind a photo.
Oh yeah,
absolutely love it, because they say to themselves, I would never do that, but geez, I love the idea.
Yeah.
I love what he's said about doing that, you know?
But
you could do that in the main body of the book, but then in the back of the book, almost like an index, you could have each of the places listed, the geo coordinates, etc.
Yeah.
And perhaps a little grading, easy, medium, hard.
Yeah.
And you know, then people can judge for themselves whether or not they're going to go and paste that and want to photograph that for themselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I think that's probably towards what I'd want to do. Yeah.
The other thing about costs I was thinking about is that, you know, through my distribution channels, selling direct, as in I'm not using anybody else, we tend to sort of like start making a profit at about 300 out of 1,000.
Okay.
You know, so as we talked about, you know, once you have sold 300, like everything else, that $75 is going straight into your pocket. It's not, all right, 15 of that's the cost and then everything else is, you know, mine. It's like, right, all that full 75 is now mine. Have you thought about how you would distribute the book, as in, right, who's going to buy it and therefore what's the best way to reach those people?
Not so much. It would probably revolve around, you know, I'd start with the following, obviously. So my kind of online presence as such, so sell it through the website, you know, that's going to be, you know, that's something that would sell to a certain extent. And then I don't know, I'd probably push something that's similar to what you would do and get it, maybe not homeware shop. Yeah, I don't know whether it'd push towards homeware shops, but maybe
I absolutely think it would.
Probably.
The reason being that if you have something on, like, you know, Australian landscapes, or you have something on waterfalls, they just have universal appeal.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, you don't have to be a keen landscape photographer to pick up a beautiful walk on the waterfalls of Victoria and go, oh wow, this is, you know, this is beautiful. You enjoy that anyway. So if it's done well and it presents well, somebody's going to pick up that book and think nothing more. We were really shy about charging $75 too, by the way. It's probably the best decision we made, because
nice.
It's it would have sold at $50 as well, but I don't know that we would have sold any more than that we have already.
Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Yep.
It's just that when I picked it, actually we always had it at $50 before it arrived, and then I picked it up and I went, this is not a $50 book.
Yeah.
I actually think this feels more like a $75 book, and given that you're like a self-publisher, also too, people go, right, okay, 75, it's a bit pricey, but hey, like the guy has, it is self-published. It's not done by some big, publishing house. Yeah. And therefore I'm happy to support the artist, so to speak.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think that's pretty realistic too. Yeah.
I do like where you're going with there. I would certainly start by trying to offload as many as possible through your own socials and website, because then that money is coming back to you.
Yeah.
And then you think, right, I've exhausted that.
Yeah.
I'll then go on to, distributing it through other people who obviously want their cut. I'm not getting as much, but at least you should always think to I would like to think that you if you decide to go with 1,000, you get rid of those within 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. Yep.
You want to speak to a guy. Do you know Grant Dixon down in Tassie by any chance?
No.
Okay. I'll introduce you to Grant.
Yeah.
I actually, I wouldn't say advised, but he just rang me before he published his book on the snow landscapes of Tassie. Okay. A beautiful book called Winter Light. And he actually sold out of that really quickly. Like I was super pleased for him. And we had a chat about it, and pretty much everything I told him, he'd already covered off anyway. But you'd want to have a chat with him, because he managed to offload those books really quick, and they weren't cheap. Yeah, they weren't cheap either. It was it's a reasonable sized book. It's landscape orientation. It's not as thick as that. Yeah, I ended up paying about $90 for it, for example. Okay. But I was happy to do that.
How many pages is yours?
This one here is 224, roughly. Yeah, 224, something like that. The pages certainly do have an impact in the price. So it's not like I'll just keep chucking pages in and we'll see where it ends up. You can't. Yeah,
no, I don't think I would. No, I wouldn't be pushing. Yeah, I think probably that 200 kind of range is where I'd want to, so probably similar.
The other thing is that you don't have to include every single waterfall that you photograph either. Of
course, no. And I won't. I would only put, like, I don't know whether you heard at my walkthrough on the weekend for the waterfalls, but I only showed like 47 or something, but I think I shot 53. That there was a good handful in there, like the 6 that I didn't like, and that's pretty standard. Or I had some gear kind of malfunctions, or something like that. So that was. They're ones that I didn't include in it because I wasn't happy with the photo, and that's how I would be with the book anyway.
You never want to publish something that you think later on you're so about it in the first place, and then because in years to come you're going to hate it more.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And the other thing is too, you might think it's important to include that waterfall, but to be honest, no one's going to call you and go, Adam, I picked up your waterfalls book of Victoria and it's shit because it hasn't got damn Dongadale Falls in it, mate. What are you doing? No one's going to pick you up on that, know. So at the end of the day, it might matter to you, but it's not going to matter to anybody else.
And this won't be, there's obviously, there's probably there might be 500 or 600 waterfalls in Victoria. So there's, in no way is it going to cover every waterfall in Victoria.
No. And
that's something that I'd like to do, but I think it'd nearly be impossible anyway, because it gets to a point where there'd be some creek somewhere in the middle of nowhere that no one ever walked up. And, there'd be a waterfall on it that, and then it gets to a point where it's like, is a waterfall this big, a waterfall, or does it need to be above a certain height,
Yeah.
So it'd be all...
And then
it'd be my favorites as such.
Then exactly, because then it starts steering away from what you started doing in the first place, which was I just like going out and shooting waterfalls. Yeah. And if all of a sudden it becomes this whole, I've got to shoot every single
one, yeah.
And it's like, hold on, this is not what I started out wanting to do.
No.
I just want to go away and have a fun weekend shooting waterfalls down in the Otways and getting lost and throwing ropes off cliffs, and that was the fun, not I have this obligation to go out and try and shoot and get a comprehensive, coverage, photographic history or record of all these waterfalls. No, and
I think I would do every common one that you could find.
Yeah.
I would want all of them. So let's say that's 50, and then there'd be 150 that are, but I think I'd want to tick off that kind of, that double century, that 200. I think that'd be a good amount. And then it's like, you can say more than 200 waterfalls or something like that. It's a good selling point for the book.
Okay. So that then means that you've it depends on what templates you're going to use then, because if you've got a double page spread for every single waterfall, you've got 200 waterfalls, there's 400 pages. So maybe you want to look at the economics there. If you said to me, clearly, right. So if you said to me, right, no, absolutely, I'm adamant that I have 200 waterfalls in this book. That sounds like a nice number for me. Great, that's 1 page each, with the occasional double page spread thrown in just to break up the feel of the book. But what I worry about with your book is that, does it have a sameness to it because they're all waterfalls? I think you have to be clever about your layout so that there's not this whole, and another waterfall and another waterfall and another waterfall. There's that this wow
moment every couple of flips.
And that was the problem that I had with this book, and made sure of absolutely consciously, because I haven't actually counted up. I think probably a third of this book was actually photographed on the same flight. I literally went for a flight 3 days after Christmas one year.
Yeah, wow.
To start this book and say, right, I'm going to choose
holding your shutter down the whole time.
I shot a shitload of pictures. I'm literally going to choose a day where it's a beautiful day, the beaches are packed, because that's the sort of look I wanted to go for. I think it was the 27th of December a couple of years ago.
Yeah, wow.
35-degree day, Sunday afternoon. So that helped. It was a weekend, even though it was the summer holidays.
Nice.
Not a breath of wind. And I've never seen the beaches so packed, right? So literally, I'm like, oh my God, like I've just shot my whole book. Of course, it wasn't just that. I went out and shot some drone pictures as well and other things, but I had to make sure that when I laid the book out, it didn't have that sort of, hold on, have I seen that shot before? Is that the same as the one on that page versus the one on that page? I'm really conscious of that when I came to lay the book out, to break those pictures up so that there wasn't that fatigue.
How long did you fly for?
That was a couple of hours. Wasn't long.
Okay. Did you just find someone in
I go to Tyab. I go to the Tyab airport here, which just a small airfield, and they're very good to me. I just ring them up and I go, "Hi, it's Tom. I want to go out and shoot some aerials," and they go, "Oh, sure, I'll just find a spot for you." And they're mainly people flying out there have their own aircraft, or they're trainee pilots who are being taught how to fly. So they just put me in with one of the instructors. An old dude who's done 10,000 hours. And he says, right, where do you want to go? Let's go. And, we just off we go and we fly.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
it's very good fun. I haven't done
I did the same over the Great Ocean Road a couple of years ago. It's good.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Pretty fun. Because I used to do some skydiving as well. So
I ended
up being, it was a skydiving plane, and we just hung out the door. Just had my feet out the door the whole time. And
you would have been in one of those air vans.
It was an air van,
a sliding door.
Yep.
Yeah, they're awesome. We hired them up at Lake Air.
It was fun. It was pretty hard. It's pretty tough shooting out of a plane.
I don't know whether you're being sarcastic or not.
It was a nice day, but like you're getting blown around quite a fair bit. It was a pretty shitty day.
Right. Look, it's funny. Like I've done lots. And it wasn't until we went back up to the Kimberley this year and shot out of helicopters again, which was super cool fun. But you realize how much there is to contend with. Like, sure, the finished product looks fantastic and it looks easy. But then it's anything but, like you've got the pilot to instruct, and you've got your wits to keep about you to make sure that your camera's all set up properly. You're looking and making sure that you're capturing what you're seeing, or at least not missing anything. The plane's doing 200 kilometers an hour. The number of times I said to that bloke on this trip, you said, "Oh, how long did you fly for?" Well, I think we did about 20 switchbacks, because I think we did 4 runs over the Mount Martha beach, for example, because I'd go, "Nah, mate, sorry, we were just a bit too close. Can we go around and do it again and just be a little further out?" And then, all right, can we get a bit lower on the next one?
Yeah.
All right, can we go higher for the next one? And he's like, again. And I go, "Yeah, sorry, mate, again." or I'll shoot this with a wider angle lens this time rather than the long crop.
Yeah.
You know, and so again and again and again and again, he got a bit sick of me in the end, I think.
Yeah.
You know, it's not easy. Like things are moving very fast and the wind's coming in at your face, and the number of times that I've switched the camera from auto to manual and screwed things up, or looked at the shutter speed and it's 0.004 of a second rather than 1,000, and then all of a sudden the pictures are 3 stops underexposed, or it's not easy. So absolutely,
and you were you shooting on your medium format back
I was,
then too?
I was shot with my Pentax 645Z.
Yeah.
And I also had on my lap my Nikon 7200. So there's a mixture of both in there. Yeah. And to be honest, it doesn't really phase me which was which, because when you come to print them, the quality of the files out of both of them are excellent.
Fine anyway.
Yeah, very good, very good. Any other questions at this stage, Adam, on that whole process? You know,
no, I think that's good. I think that's given me a good
help. I feel like
insight of where to. Well, it's going to help me with the start, and I think once the start, I think that whole, what's that phrase? Once you start, you're halfway there or something. So it's like
the hardest part is the start in the first place.
Yeah,
and it's. I think the fun part is the shooting.
Yeah,
the hardest part is actually going, right, okay, let's start laying this bugger out. And the sooner you do that, I think for me, personally, there's that sort of anxiety around that. There's that whole, or at least getting your head around, right, how do I want this book to look?
Yeah.
You know, am I going to go vertical? Am I going to go horizontal? How big? How many pages? How am I going to lay this out? What's the font going to be like? Once you start to nail those things down, it's very easy. I mean, literally, I probably laid that book out in a week. There was probably an extra week of fiddling around. But to be honest, when you've got the templates right, what are you doing? You're just dropping and dragging, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you know, it pitches onto a page and then just rearranging the pages.
Yeah.
Putting the caption alongside the photographs. I mean, that's a very simple layout, that book, to be honest.
Yeah.
It hasn't got lots of stories and everything else. The Wolf books were a frigging nightmare to do because
I could imagine.
There was so much to lay out. They were huge books, and I'll go and get one. I'll show you. And every single story had to be proofread about 3 times because we were getting the owners to write them.
Yeah, wow.
I like that. Full spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, and then we had the dog's name and then the breed and the age alongside of the photo. Of course, they'd give us, you know, the wrong breed, or we'd spelled the breed wrong, or we'd got the wrong age to the wrong dog because there's 2 photos in the 2 dogs in the photo. Oh, freaking hell! I'll see the wrong one on the bookcase just a second.
Yeah, nice.
These are the books that we never. Although should I say, I've never reproduced in the same way for a landscape book, but I'd love to one day. 3.2 kilos, that thick, 30 by 30 centimeters. How many pages? 350 odd pages. A French fold dust jacket, which means that it folds in on itself there, so it doesn't get tethered edges at the top.
Oh,
so that costs money. Printed hardcover, like you see here.
Yeah.
This actually won a few printing awards, and then as you can see here, you know, specialist font for the dog.
So every dog has a different font.
Not all of them,
but a lot.
You know, but then if they got a beautiful double page spread, you see the dogs in the water, so they've put the dogs in the water, so you can see with the Y there, they've put that in water.
And
so that was a great little thing that we had done. Yoffie, she's like sitting up on this beautiful chaise lounge. So
with the king hat,
So
you shot all them as well.
The majority of these, we did 6 of these books. I shot at least the first 3 or 4, but then we did have helpers along the way. Craig Wetchen did a few shots for the first edition.
Cool.
And then we hired other people because it just wasn't physically possible for me to do all these.
Yeah.
You know? But huge stories and just so many good things. And Scuzzy, you know, the designer here on this one, it's sitting at the table having a latte. So they've done that as though the coffee cup's been lifted off the, you know, with the rim. So clever.
That's cool. Yeah.
I don't understand. I can't remember why I told you that particularly and grab that book, but
just around the, you know, to make it not look as the same as the rest of the books. just in general.
It was a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Printing one of those books was like giving birth, I swear. Not that the girls, the women the mothers who are watching this presentation are going, you don't know what you're talking about. But seriously, I used to work till midnight, 2 a.m. for months to put those books together. Because again, we'd always be against the deadline too, because we'd start the project and then tell the client that it was going to be ready for Christmas.
Yeah.
And, you might start the project in sort of like, January, and then you have to stop shooting by September or not even. And then sometimes the book would get delayed. And I remember one of these books, we actually, we printed 1,000. These are 3.2 kilos each, by the way. We printed 1,000 and we had pre-orders for about 200, and I paid for 300 of them to be air freighted from Hong Kong. It cost me $6,000. It cost me $6,000 because I was so worried that the books weren't going to get there for the launch party that we actually just paid to have them air freighted.
Just copped it, yeah.
And just went, oh, well, like we can't have a launch party without a book. So we were running so late on that project. It was funny. So that was horrible. God. But it's good to think ahead and have those sort of like timelines like you're talking about, and saying, right, okay, this is the book I have in mind. There's no deadline. At the end of the day, when it's done, it's done. And you'll come to the sort of natural end of that cycle where you go, you're not going to say I'm not going to shoot any waterfalls anymore, but you'll also say I've got pretty much 90% of what I want to get done. So it's time to really start getting this to print. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Cool. All right. So what'd you say? 12 weeks normally? 12 weeks from sort of start to finish. When you say, look, I think it's pretty much done, you send it to Ian. He'll do the checks for you. There's a couple of weeks worth of back and forth, fixing things up, et cetera, et cetera. He sends it to Hong Kong. A couple of weeks later, they get your proof. You do another week of checks. They do another week of changes. So they're already to 8 weeks. They print it. It goes onto a ship. It takes 2 weeks to get here, another week to get it off the docks. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So that I think turns out to be about 12 weeks. I guess that's the really tricky thing too. It's like, because primarily, as I said before, like I'm going to be shooting in the winter. So it's like next year is going to be the big year, because at least I'll actually be able to do a whole season. Yeah. And I'll just be able to slug it out every weekend, as long as there's been some rainfall, I'll just be able to, be down wherever shooting waterfalls. But then it's like you get to the end of winter and, ideally you're just dropping pictures in as you're going and sorting your layout out and doing everything as you go. But then you get to the end of winter, but then you haven't got time. And ideally you'd probably want to get it done before Christmas. So then do you wait like another year? So it's a bit of a weird balance, isn't it? You know what? You actually nailed it there. And something that I haven't mentioned is when you release the book, and the best time is around now. Yeah. Because that's what I would aim for, of course. Yeah. It's a very clever observation you've made there. Because, I launched Ella and Friends Photography in October back in 2003, and the money we got from Christmas orders basically took us, through the following year. Wow. It was just serendipitous. Like I didn't plan it that way, but it just happened to be that I launched a business just before Christmas where I got enough Christmas orders that it was encouraging enough for me to want to go on. And I had a little bit of money in the bank to actually get me through, the very early stages of starting a business, right? So absolutely what you want to do is go, right. And some people love to get pre-orders because then it helps pay for the book. Yeah. If you've got 20 grand in your pocket, that's always very good. You've nailed crypto by then, man. You'll be a multi-million dollar. I'll be able to buy a million books. Let's get a million. You'll be paying for the book in crypto. What do you mean?
Absolutely.
What's this
straight to Bitcoin?
What's this fiat currency you're talking about? Some people, often it is the case where you go, fuck, I haven't got 20 grand. Like I've got 10, but I haven't got 20. So, okay. You put it out to your socials and you say, would anyone like to pre-order a copy of the book? And if you do pre-order, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sweeten the deal. I'll chuck in an A4 print that you might print yourself or get for $1 from somewhere, or I'll individually sign, like when you do a crowdfunding thing, you add a sweetener, or if you buy 2, I'll do, it's 75 each, but if you do 2, I'll do it for 125, whatever. Yeah. Or I'll chuck in free postage, whatever. There's all sorts of things, And that's probably something that I would do. But then it's tough, isn't it? Because then
you actually receive the books and then you have to make more sales. But then I guess they're going to happen anyway, aren't they? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what I'd do. I'd have to figure that out.
Have a think about it. I don't like the idea of doing pre-sales because I've just been caught out too many times where I make too many promises and I say, yeah, it's going to be ready by Christmas. And then all of a sudden you get delayed and you're like, and people are like emailing you 2 weeks before Christmas going, where's my book that I paid for 3 months ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's up to you. You know, if you need the cash, absolutely you should do pre-sales. But
yeah, well, in all honesty, it's one of those things where I'm not doing this tomorrow. So, you just save, don't you?
Exactly.
You just put the money away and you figure out a way of paying for it at the start of 2023, because that's probably when it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, I think that's probably pretty realistic, and try to get it launched for the middle of the year in 2023.
Sooner rather than later is better, in a sense that there's nothing wrong with launching it in July versus October, November. You're better to be early than late.
You don't want it happening it's probably better to get it middle of the year rather than January, because then you December, haven't you?
People have the least amount of money in January, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
They're all still trying to pay off their Christmas credit cards. So absolutely having it so that people could buy it for Christmas, because again, we would actually sell the summer edition book as like a gift pack, and we'd say, so Mary's great at this. You go, all right, so that one's for you. Yes. So a second one for somebody else then, a gift to, for a family member or a friend or something. And they're like, but the number of people who have said, you know what, I actually bought a copy for myself, but I remembered I should have bought one for my parents because they live here on the peninsula as well, so having that sort of like, you just, you almost have that as a drop down on your website.
Yeah.
Gift pack, two, two's a gift pack. One's for yourself, two's a gift pack. They go, actually, I will get two. I'll get one for myself and one for somebody else. I'll gift it to somebody else, whatever.
Yeah, nice.
Lots of things to consider.
It's exciting. It's good.
It is exciting. What we should do, nonetheless, is get a quote for that book now, because then it just gives you a feel for like what sort of ballpark figure I'm looking at. Obviously, things will change and no doubt costs will go up between now and then, but at least you've got a ballpark figure. In mind for that. 1,000 copies at that particular size. What do you think?
Yeah.
You reckon
1,000? Do you reckon 1,000 is too many or not?
Well, let's start with 500 then.
Yeah, well, let's get a quote. Let's get a quote. We'll get a quote on 500 and 1,000.
We'll get a quote on both
and see how much cheaper 1,000 is. Because 1,000's tough. It's that's a scary number. The money doesn't bother me. The money I really don't care too much about.
Right.
Because not that I've got 20 grand just sitting there to throw away, but it's more that I can prepare for it, so that makes it easier. Well, it's not going to be 20, is it? Let's say it's going to be 10. Well, let's say it's going to be 14. But it's it's something that it's more about the having them and storing them, and
it is,
and then getting rid of them. And it's like I would nearly rather, in a way, have 500 and then be like, okay, well, look, I'm going to redesign the cover. I'm going to move some stuff around. I'm going to add in another 50 waterfalls, and I'm going to make an addition too,
Absolutely. Yep.
And that makes it a more fun process again.
It does, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. I think it's better to sell out of 500.
It makes it sound really good, doesn't it?
Than to sell 550 and have 450 sitting there that you never sell.
Imagine that. Make a really good bushfire. really good.
Well, this is honestly why I don't understand why people commercially print calendars, self-publish and print their own calendars. I mean, I know lots of photographers do it, and it's great that we've got this on-demand service these days where they can get 20, 30 printed. It costs them next to nothing, a few $100, and they sell them, and they're not doing it to make money.
No.
But it's great. They love seeing their work in print. But to print 1,000 calendars, scares the shit out of me, because I think we did it with Australian Geographic. We did this beautiful big A3 calendar this year, right?
Yep.
And we bought copies. We bought 100 copies off them. We sold them through the gallery. They went like hotcakes. It was great. Yeah. But I thought to myself, I got a quote from my printer and said, right, how much to do this? And it worked out to be the same price as what we'd paid through Australian Geographic cost price, but I'd have to order 1,000 of those, not 100.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, can I possibly sell 1,000 calendars?
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to, even if I profited, 300 out of 1,000, I don't want to put 500, take 500 to the tip. And I basically, come 31st of January, that's what you have to do. No one's going to buy a calendar after that.
Yeah. I'm lucky in a way. I do smaller runs because it's it's so cheap that you can. But it's, I can kind of sell. Generally, I sell calendars until I'm probably the end of February.
Right. Really? Okay.
That's and then but not as many. But a few kind of keep clicking through. My mum has a homeware shop down the Ballerine Peninsula.
Does she really?
Yeah. So I had a gallery in there for years. And then that stopped happening, and then she ended up moving it over into like a change rooms and she changed everything, so it's a completely different store now. It's probably more of a clothing shop than it is a homeware shop now, but she normally sells 100 odd for me every year, so that kind of works out quite nicely. And then I sell 100 through the website thereabouts, and I might have to throw out a handful, but I rarely throw out any more than 20 maybe.
That's nothing.
Which is okay. I can handle that, because then you just give them away, don't you?
Of course.
When it gets to February, I'll just put a thing on my thing, just pay shipping. Here's your calendar. Happy birthday. Because I'd rather get rid of them than throw them in the bin.
Of course, somebody else is enjoying that, and then they come back next year and they buy one at full price.
Yeah.
And who do you get those printed through?
Place in Ballarat. It's called Revolution Print. I'll send it to you.
Revolution.
It could be a good option. They're definitely not a full premium kind of thing. Like, they look good, but they're not they're stapled rather than a ring. But they can probably do ones with rings. But they look quite good.
Beautiful. And what do you sell those for, Adam? How much?
I sell them for 25.
Yep.
And then a very small shipping fee of $2.
Yep.
Just because it falls into a large letter.
Large letter. Yeah, because it's
so you can get rid of it it's pretty easy for shipping. So what I've done is I thought about doing it a few different ways, and I think this is something worth talking about in a way too. The marketing behind the price is often forgotten about. So it's like, for me, I feel like $25 with a $2 shipping fee is better than $20 with a $7 shipping fee.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So it's it's a bit of a manipulation in a way.
Yeah. No, it's all how you pick it. Yeah. Yeah, we're worried about that with our book as well, in the sense that
so what's the shipping cost on that? It'd be a bit.
We charge 20. So we charge 75 for the book and then another 20, which makes it a $95 purchase. Yeah. And I really thought people weren't going to run with that, but I thought, well, if they want it, they'll pay it, and they have.
Yep. Nice.
And so, we've got orders from interstate. I don't know how they find us, but we literally purchased it and we've sent it to them. And so again, that was almost something where I thought, well, why don't we just do free shipping? But can you imagine if I did $20 worth of free shipping on, say, 100 books is $2,000. That's come out of my pocket.
A lot of money. Yeah.
It is. And, we've posted a lot of those books. Literally, I rock up at the post office every second day and they're like, all right, more books, hey?
Yeah.
So, I'm glad that we made that decision to not go free shipping. We do free shipping on all of our artwork, for example, because it comes from Bring Prints and they ship it direct to the client. So we're paying for it when we get it printed, and it's a small percentage, much cheaper than what we could post it from the gallery. So,
and then the thing is you have to package it up, don't you?
We have to package it up.
I guess the bonus with that is that if they're shipping it directly out to the customer and it gets damaged, then it's kind of their problem in a way.
True. And the other thing is too, they're used to shipping hundreds and hundreds of prints. And so two things, they know how to package it up so it arrives safely, but B, they actually have a flat rate that they've negotiated with their couriers and Australia Post, etc.
Yep.
Where, it cost me $30 to get a print from then down to me or to somebody else. There's no way I could take a large print, large box to the post office. A, they'd tell me to piss off, but B, they'd probably charge me 80, 90, 150, whatever. So it just scales it, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I looked at that brewing prints the other day. They look good. I might get something from them just to see what it's like.
Yeah, you can get a sample, I'm sure. Just give Dylan a call there. He's the owner's brother. He's super nice, and just say, hey, Tom mentioned you guys, and I'm a professional photographer and I want to get some stuff done.
Yeah.
And get something printed. They do my acrylics, canvas, box frame prints. I've been printing canvases with them for 15 years. That's how they started off, just printing canvases. They do some of my frame prints, metal prints. They do they've got about 15, 20 products they do now.
Cool.
And they do most things very well. So
I get my printing and framing done in Port Melbourne, just at a shop there. And he's great, but he obviously he does a little bit of canvas stuff, but they don't do acrylics or metal or anything like that. So that'd be a good option, I think.
Oh yeah, look, it's great too, because it's very easy for me to order, as I showed the guys the other day. About how to do that. You saw that,
it's quite, that's
so super easy. Like I get my orders done in, it's maybe 10 minutes per order.
Yeah, nice.
Which is just a matter of just resizing the photo, sharpening it, uploading it to their website, choosing the size, and then Bob's your uncle. It's very simple process, and that's what makes it fun for me to order all the orders that I get. If it was hard, it'd be a pain in the ass, and I wouldn't enjoy it.
Mine's a little bit tricky. I kind of have to transfer it to Dean, and then he resizes it and does all that for me. So it's relatively easy. But and then he just sends it off, gets it printed. But it's not too bad of a system. But he's trying to set up something similar to what Brew and Prince is going to do anyway, some sort of online system. But
like anything, like Amazon realized many, 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 many years ago at the start of the internet, they said, if we can make things easy, we will never be the same experience as what a bookshop is like. You'll never be able to smell the pages of our books. You'll never get that ambience, etc. So what we need to do is create an experience which is seamless for people and easy for people to order. So he started, I don't know whether you've heard that famous sort of three clicks and you've checked out already type thing. Like he said that from the homepage, you shouldn't have to click more than 3 times in order to order any of our products. So it just meant that people could really quickly and easily order their stuff, and there was less friction, I guess you'd say, in order to be able to order something. And I've tried to incorporate that with the stuff that we do as well on our website, so that you just choose your size, and the thing is that a lot of the time people have all these different sizes for their prints on their websites. You go on a photographer's website and there's like 10 different sizes, and you're like, I don't know. And they've got them in inches rather than centimeters, and like we're the only ones who think in inches, not our clients.
Exactly. No, of course not.
So they're looking at these 16, 20 inches on the website, and they're going, well, how big's that?
How big's that?
And all of a sudden they're like, no, too hard, I'm not going to bother.
They've got to pull out a tape measure, and they go,
And then how big's that on the wall, and is that big enough? And oh my God, the technology is now like AI. There's some service providers, like website providers now, that you literally just scan a code on the website. And then just hold your phone up to the wall.
I saw that actually.
And then your photo that's your photo
from
your website sitting on their wall. And they go, no, that actually looks good. No, 3 sizes bigger. Thanks very much. Yep, done.
I need to. The website's the next thing. So I might even chat to you about that at a later date as well. But because you're a bit of a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all this stuff, which is great.
Well, I just, learn a few things along the way, and I just recently spent probably good 6 to 8 weeks upgrading my website.
Mine's just a Squarespace one, and it's good, but I need to jump over to like a Shopify thing so that it integrates a little bit better into everything.
Right.
But that's kind of the plan anyway.
Yep.
Depends. Yours is run through Shopify, yeah?
It is, I've been with them for about 5 years now. And, like I said, it's probably serviced about 80% of my requirements. I think there's some things where I think to myself, if I'd start with WordPress, would I be better off now than I am? But probably more from an SEO point of view. Like WordPress for years had that Yoast plugin, it was called, which I used for quite a few years, and literally I could SEO optimize a page, and within a week or two it'd be on the first page of Google.
Wow.
Or near the top, and I'd be like, wow, this is remarkable, this is incredible, this stuff. I moved away from it for one reason or another, and went to Shopify, and I've done reasonably well out of it, but I still haven't sold nearly as many prints as I need to justify the amount of time I've put into that website. Oh my god.
Of course.
And it's never as we had Ian, my pre-press guy, speak to these guys last week about it, about web design and everything, because he's very knowledgeable in that area too. And he said, look, it's just never done. It's not something that, you get a website done and you go, right, I'm done. Thank you very much. And there's various reasons. One is you're always wanting to make it a little better, so you're tweaking it along the way. Or you've shot a whole lot of new pictures, so you've got to upload those to the website, so it changes again. Or the technology changes. And all of a sudden, what was trendy 5 years ago is old hat these days, and we've got to upgrade it to the AI, scan the QR code, hold it up to your wall type thing. Where it's all going. So, those who don't have that on their website now, well, it's only a matter of time before we're going to need that, because it's going to be expected. People are going to go, I love buying from them because I can just, scan the QR code and I can hold it up to my wall and I can see whether it looks good or not. And so those who don't have that software or that technology are
behind the times.
So it's an interesting space. I'm more than happy to help you out with that too. That'd be awesome.
Well, it's obviously it's going to take. I've started to re-put some prints. I had prints on my website for years, and then I've started to re-put them on in a better way, just to make it work a little bit better. And then I look at it and I go, it's just not how I want it.
Right.
So I need to just learn the Shopify function a little bit more, and because you can just make a normal website on that too, can't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, it's geared
more
up
of a store, obviously, but
it's geared up to sell stuff. So at the end of the day, what it's there. If you've got a product to sell, create a website. Have a homepage that sort of introduces people to what you want. Perhaps have a few feature products or feature collections. And then from there, sitting underneath that sort of homepage at the top is you branch out to your products. And then from there, they check out. It's a pretty simple structure. You can make it as simple or as complicated as you want. We've got 2,200 products available on our website.
Yeah, you took that the other day. That's great.
But at the end of the day, there's really just sort of like, vertical, horizontal, pano, squares, a few square pictures, and 3 drop-down boxes, size, finish, and frame color. And I ask people all the time, I say, we've been having a look at your website. How did you find that, experience? Because for a while there, I think it just got really messy, where I was like, you couldn't, at one stage there, a mate of mine rings me, Dave Evans, who you may know. What's the web address? What's your postal address for your gallery? Where's your gallery located? And I'm like, what do you mean? It's on the website. He goes, no, it's not. I can't find it anywhere. And it literally, wasn't there. I couldn't find it either. I'm like, it's hidden somewhere. It's like, oh my God, how can you not have your gallery address on your website? It's the first thing. So you do. We've improved a lot. And that's where you get other people to look at your website too, where you go, hey, how did you find the experience? Or I've given practical examples to people and said, can you try and find these 3 products? How easy was it? Did you get lost? Did you go down a rabbit warren? Did you not find it at all that sort of stuff? Because sometimes you can't see the wood through the trees.
Good stuff.
All righty, thanks, man. That was a great chat. Thanks for being a part of that.
No worries at all. And, thanks for the info. It's great.
All the best for the project. We'll obviously be keeping in touch, but it was great to chat with you, and thanks for sharing that with everybody who's watching this presentation. And I'm sure they'll jump on and buy a copy of the book when it's out at some stage, whether they're looking at before the publication date or after. What's the website? AdamDysonphotography.com.au?
No, just my name, AdamDyson.com.
AdamDyson.com.
That's it.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
Good stuff. Thanks,
Catch
mate.
you later.